Now call George Adam, to be followed by Liam MacArthur.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. We also talk about wanting Scotland to be the best place in the world to grow up, and you know, it's mentioned quite a lot, and I believe that this bill will help us in getting to that ambition, building the foundations for us, ensuring we can actually do something, whether it's actually one bill, two bills, or whatever it is. It's a very ambitious bill that is obviously dealing with our most important commodity, which in Scotland is our children and young people. And what we do here will make a massive difference in all these young people's lives. Now, Claire McFarlane is quite right when she says that the charity groups and various other charities are so involved in this, and they want it to do extremely well, because that's how important it is, and they appreciate that, and they have engaged with the committee and various other groups throughout the whole scenario. But one of the things that it's interesting to see how the Education Committee got to this stage, because before we actually started debating about or discussing the Children and Young People's Bill, the committee had looked after children and the educational attainment of young people and children, and we went in at length. So we've seen some and heard some of the stories that happened to these young people, and I think that made a big difference. That made a big difference for every one of us in the committee, because it gave us an opportunity, it made it real, brought it into the real world. It was no longer just a bill, a piece of paper that we were discussing. It was actually real people's lives. And I think that's one of the things that, as a committee, every one of us took forward when we went into this process. And I went to visit not so long ago to Polmouth Young Offenders Institute, where Bernardo's are running a project. And I met a lot of young people there who, because of various things that have happened in life, were in that secure unit. But they had part of this programme, and they were helping educate younger people who were in the system as well. They were helping, and we started talking about the Children and Young People's Bill. And when we started explaining some of the things that happened in their lives, they started coming round to the idea that that may have been, not in every case, but it might have been a way to actually help them and ensure that they didn't get into that position. Now, I think that's the most important thing we have to take from this, because we do live in challenging times. We do have young people who have challenging lives, and I think we have to look at that and do what we can for these people. One of the things when I was on that visit was I had instant credibility, Presiding Officer, because one of my constituents was there, and when I told him I came from Seat Hill in Paisley, he actually thought that was actually extremely... he actually said to one of his colleagues, "George is one of us, so we can listen to him." But I think that's important. We make sure that we can have young people and children, and that's the whole point of the bill, actually at the centre of all the decision-making, empowering them and giving them the opportunity. Now, there's much been said about rights, the UNRC within the actual debate, and I would say, well, GIRFEC, UNRC is actually, the principles of it are part of getting it right for every child. And when you see the great work that is going on in the Highland Council, you can see how it's made a difference. And some of the things that were said when we got evidence from that was the fact that, a lot of the parents with the named person, they actually said the problem was when they didn't actually have the named person. Once everyone understood what the named person did, they actually they wanted to engage when it came to that situation. And this is something I think, coming from my own constituency, I can see it working in an area where there is areas of deprivation and various challenges within the constituency. And I think that's what we're here to do, is to actually get something. Yes, we can discuss over the next kind of stage 2 and stage 3 how we want to develop this further. And I'm glad that the Labour Party have decided to actually work with us on this and move things forward, because I think this is the Cabinet Secretary for Education and Lifelong Learning said earlier on in questions, this Parliament is at its best when we look at way at solving problems, like last night's debate, when we look at a way, how can we deal with this issue, and we don't just play the political game. And that's the exciting part for me about this bill, because this bill gives us an opportunity to make a difference in every single young person's life. That's not hyperbole, that's not exaggeration. If we get this right, we can ensure that we don't end up with these young men and young women in places like Polmouth and other places, and also in care. One of the things that we had when I was a councillor at Renfrewshire was there is an issue when the care service, when young people become adults and they move further, they go out to adult life, and it's challenging for us all at the best of lives when we actually go out into the big bad world, because the world isn't an easy place to live in. But one of the things we did while I was a councillor in Renfrewshire was ensure that we had housing with one of the local housing associations, ensuring that we could work with them to make sure that these young people had the support in housing, because one of the problems we often had was that, as a social housing provider, was that within about 2-year periods of giving a young person their keys of a new home, they were actually probably trying to get evicted from that said home. So I appreciate that we have to find a way to actually look after, but there's other ways of doing it. We don't have to do it under various parts of legislation. We can actually work with other partners and organisations to ensure that we can offer that support. So I think today, Presiding Officer, in closing, is actually about the vision, the idea that we can make Scotland the best place for young people to grow up in, and as long as we all work together and stay focused, we can make that difference.
Thank you very much.